Hey guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life and welcome to the next Prisoner special. In this video I'm going to be reviewing Prisoner Cell Block H episode 10, Traitor, and I cannot quite believe that we are already 10 episodes in. Now the amazing part of this whole episode is that it's Helen Masters' final episode, yes! So let's get started. Now Helen, she's doing her usual schemes in this episode, but she also starts to get a lot more devious when she starts to manipulate some of the women, including Dr. Miller. When the episode begins, Helen ends up rifling up the women about how awful the food is, and she gives B an idea for the whole prison to go on a hunger strike, which B ends up agreeing to. So when Helen demands to see the governor, B and the women back her up, and Helen ends up telling Erica that the women want to complain about the standard of food and none of them are going to eat it. After a heated discussion between Helen and Erica decides to inspect the food herself, which leads us on to a fantastic scene. So one morning, just before Erica comes into the dining room to taste the food, the women end up throwing in this massive bag of salt, and it is huge. So when Erica takes a mouthful, she literally looks like that she is about to vomit, and it's absolutely hilarious. Helen also gets Doreen to do a special job for her. So Doreen is in prison for forgery and she's pretty good at it. So Helen gets Doreen to basically forge a signature with this blackmail business with her assistant James. Helen also manages to persuade Dr. Miller to be a character reference for her in the trial. But Helen really crosses the line when she promises an inmate who's basically had her baby taken off her. Helen promises her that she will be able to get her baby back for her. Now Karen jumps in and tells Helen to stop promising things that she won't be able to do, but Helen tells Karen and convinces her that she will get the baby back, and even Karen falls under Helen's spell, and she then goes over to this inmate, I think her name is Beth, and she tells her that Helen will get her baby back. Oh god. This is just something that you do not mess around with. I mean, it was nice to see a slightly nicer side of Karen again, even if it was only for a few moments, but yeah, Helen is playing with fire here. There's actually a funny scene where Helen is talking to Karen in the laundry, trying to persuade her to basically try and help the women after Helen is gone. Now, Frankie ends up jumping in and tells Helen that this is my girl, keep your mitts off, and Karen's reaction is so hilarious. There are times, literally, with this Frankie and Karen feud that always makes me laugh. So by the end of this episode, Helen has everyone on her side, including B, and Helen promises that she is going to help all of the women when she is released, and she even promises to tell the public how bad it is for all of them in prison. So after Helen is released, she has a TV interview that all of the women are watching in the rec room. Helen ends up double-crossing B and the women, and she says things like the women are despicable and that she feared for her life and that the world is a safer place with them all behind bars. B is not happy. B has been played, which doesn't happen often in Prisoner. Frankie takes the opportunity to burst out laughing at the situation, but it's poor Beth, who I feel really sorry for. She ends up cradling a teddy or a blanket or something or other while humming a nursery rhyme, pining for her baby, and it's absolutely devastating to watch. Anyway, that is the last we ever see of Helen Masters, and thank bloody God. Marilyn was back in Wentworth in this episode after being picked up for soliciting. B is not impressed, but she does set up a meeting between Eddie and Marilyn when Eddie is in the prison doing a job, and it does not go down well. Eddie absolutely loses his cool and says some really awful things to Marilyn that it even shocks B. Is this really the end for Eddie and Marilyn? I mean, to be fair to Eddie though, first Marilyn goes back on the game to buy him a birthday present. She then leaves completely and goes back to her old life, even sends a heavy to threaten him, and then ends up back in prison. I'm not being funny guys, but I would literally be running in the opposite direction if this was happening to me. I really felt sorry for Lynn Warner in this episode because even though she was released in the last episode, she's still not in a good place. When she goes home to her parents, straight away, her parents, they don't seem to they don't want to talk about the baby. And, you know, to be fair, Lynn's pregnancy is definitely getting more and more. Basically, her stomach is getting bigger. Her mum basically wants to make up a story saying that Lynn basically went off and married a man before she got pregnant, and then the man was killed in a car accident or something like that. Basically, they are in denial. They do not want the small town where they live to gossip about them. When the local vicar turns up preaching stuff to Lynn, you know, from the Bible, Lynn's dad actually sticks up for her and even tells the vicar that Lynn has nothing to be sorry for, which I was really happy to see. Lynn is looking really lost. I mean, she might be released from prison, but everything, you know, has changed on the outside. Things will not ever be the same again for her, and by the end of this episode, Lynn tells her parents that maybe it's for the best that she just leaves home and never returns. And I'm just like, no. Oh, I really wanted to give Lynn a hug in this episode. She does end up writing a letter to Doug and posting it to the men's prison. So Doug is obviously that guy who Lynn made friends with when he was digging up in the prison grounds. Now, will Doug be making an appearance at some point? Well, we will just have to wait and see. Someone else I was feeling really bad for in this episode is Vera. I don't think Vera has given herself a chance to grieve, and she's basically been throwing herself into long double shifts and just suppressing her feelings. She's drinking at home alone every night, and things end up boiling over in this episode. Vera ends up going out to a bar alone to try and make some new friends, but she ends up getting really drunk, and she pretty much makes a huge fool of herself. She almost gets herself arrested for being drunk and disorderly when a cop in the bar spots her. Luckily, he just takes her home when he realizes that she's a prison officer, and this is where it all comes out of Vera, because Vera goes on about how lonely she is, she doesn't know what to do with herself, she has no friends, and it's really sad. There's even a scene at the prison where Vera hears some of the other officers basically slagging her off, saying awful things about her appearance. Later on, this detective guy called Graham, who brought Vera home, gives her a ring while she's working at the prison. Now, could there be a romance on the horizon for Vera and Graham, or does this Graham have a more sinister plan that we just don't know about yet? I did notice that the guy who was playing this Graham will also return in Prisoner very much later on in much later episodes, when he ends up playing a character called Nurse Neil Murray. Also, the woman playing Lynn Warner's mum will also return with a few different stints throughout the show's run, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be many more. Anyway, I really enjoyed this episode despite the Helen Masters stuff going on. It was very interesting seeing Vera behave the way that she did, but grief does make you do silly things. I've been there myself. This Marilyn and Eddie storyline is getting a little bit tiresome for me. I'm really feeling bad for Lynn Warner at the moment, but I'm hoping there's going to be some happy times coming. Doreen is hilarious just as ever. Lizzie was being a little bit annoying in this episode because she was basically playing childish jokes on Doreen. Thank God this sort of thing doesn't continue on into the show with Lizzie's character, because I actually do love Lizzie. It's just this one rare episode where the writers turned her character annoying. I think my favourite moment is the scene where Frankie pretends to have a lovers falling out with Helen Masters and Karen Travis. I just think it's hilarious. And my least favourite moment has to be Helen Masters promising Beth that she will get her baby back. I mean, that for me is just total evil. Promising someone something like that, knowing that you're never going to be able to do it. Right then guys, well, you know the score by now. What were your favourite parts in this episode? Are you glad to finally see the back of Helen Masters? And let me know what you're thinking of Vera's and her behaviour at the moment, because even though she is a bitch to the women, I can't help but find myself feeling really bad for her at the moment. So let me know what of your thoughts in the comments box below. Okay then guys, thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe, and I will see you all again very soon.